I'm Andrew Szeto, and coolest shit I've ever done, maybe building structures, built like an A-frame, built a sauna.
Welcome back, my creative nerds. Welcome to episode 48. This is the Do More Cool Shit podcast. I'm your host, Sean McDonnell. Of course, I already said you're the creative nerds that are listening, or in this case, maybe you're watching. Maybe you're hanging out on YouTube with us. But either way, I am so happy you guys are here. I'm excited. It's a brand new week. We love our Mondays here. If you're not listening on a Monday, it's just because it's the second Monday or the third Monday. You know how we do here. But I could not be more excited for you guys to be joining me on this journey today, as to listen in on the conversation I got to have with an amazing entrepreneur, woodworker, photographer, videographer. This man is pure creative. Skateboarder. This man is pure creative and a pure doer, maker, and just an overall great human being. I'm joined today by Andrew Szeto. I'm bringing you the conversation that I got to have with him a little while ago, and I couldn't be more. I couldn't be happier and inspired. I couldn't be happier that you're going to be inspired. If you listen all the way through this episode, if you watch this episode, I guarantee you are going to be inspired to get up off your ass and go do some stuff. Andrew is a shaker mover. He's been doing stuff for many, many years, and I love the energy that he brings. But of course, before we get to Andrew in episode 48, I always want to look back, and then we're going to take a little look forward of what's surrounding this episode. So we look back at episode 47. Now I have to ask you, episode 47 was about optimism. And I asked you guys this very specific question. What was one small thing that you could be more optimistic about in your life? What's one thing that you could use your brain in the last 2 weeks to be a little bit more optimistic about? And I want you to sit and think about that. I hope you have an answer. If you haven't had the chance to go and listen to that episode, I want you to understand that optimism is absolutely not positivity. Optimism is a bit of a hope for the future. It is not blind positivity. And I think that is something that gets confused. And I think it's something that you absolutely have to go and listen to. If you haven't listened to episode 47, please go back and give that a listen so that you can start to fill your life with that. Of course, Andrew and I talk about a lot of different things at episode 48, but one of the things that we talk about at the very end and kind of sprinkled throughout is a little bit is this notion of living with intention. And I want to spend a lot more time talking about that. So episode 49 coming up again, we're going to see that episode coming out in May 13th. You're going to see that episode coming out, and I hope that you guys can give that a listen, because it's going to be all about living with intention, and I am so excited to dive a little bit deeper into that topic, because I think like Andrew, I think we live in this fast-paced world where sometimes we get lost in the race. You know, sometimes you ever walk into the kitchen and you kind of go, the hell am I doing here? Right? Well, that's living your life with zero intention, and kind of, I think that can happen really easily to all of us, me included. So I'm going to dive into that. There's definitely some topics. I've been doing a lot of reading about that ever since my conversation with Andrew, and I'm excited to bring you some real hard understanding facts and things like that about intention and how we can incorporate that into our creative, wild world. All right. So let's talk about episode 48. Let's get into the meat of what we're doing here. And before I talk about our conversation, I just wanted to thank you all again for coming along on the journey with me. I hope you guys have been checking out the Do More Cool Shit website. Some of you have been joining me on some of the Twitch streams that we've been doing. It's been an amazing time, and I can't thank all of you enough. If you haven't had a chance yet to give us a rating on any of the platforms, please go give us a rating. Let me know how we're doing. I love communicating with you guys. I love hearing what you guys are up to, especially the creative stuff that you guys are up to. Drop me a note anytime at domorecoolshit.com. I love hearing what you guys are up to, and it certainly fuels me. So thank you. But let's get into this episode. So the title of this episode, What Skateboarding Can Teach Us About Life. Well, skateboarding can teach us a lot, apparently. If you listen to anything on this episode, you're going to hear Andrew talking about how his journey started through skateboarding, which I was like, but while I was getting prepared for this, I started thinking about, I started reading things and listening to other podcasts that Andrew's been on. And he often talked about this idea that skateboarding had affected his life in a very powerful way, in a very impactful way. And it's palpable how many lessons are in the world of skateboarding and how much of it translates into his life now. And I think one of the very early things that we talk about is either you do it or you don't. Either you get on the skateboard and you roll down that hill and you do that first jump, or you don't. And it's everything in life is just that simple, right? You either do get on that skateboard and you take that chance, you take that risk, you're going to fail, right? We've talked about failure a ton on this podcast, and I love talking about failure because I don't think there is failure. As long as you're learning from failure, there is just continual opportunities to learn more, and skateboarding is full of the trial and error. So I want you to think about some time that's been in your life. What's one thing that you continually challenge yourself? What's one thing that you are okay with trial and error? Because I think that's really, really important. A couple of the other things we talk about in here, Andrew had this great quote, kind of in the 10 and a half minute mark here. You're going to hear Andrew talking about what are you going to care about when you die? Right. And for him, it was things that he's made, whether it be things that he's made with his hands, things that he created with video, memories, friendships, relationships, all those things. Those are so important. And we talk a little bit about that. We talk about his curiosity. We talk about how he's always trying to learn and how skateboarding can teach you a lot about that. Because, okay, it's one thing to get on the board. Sure, anybody can get on the board. Anybody can stand on a skateboard, right? Anybody can stand on a skateboard, and anybody can use one foot and push them forward just a little bit, right? You can do that. Almost anybody can do that. But what about the first time you do a kickflip? What about the first time you try an ollie? What about the first time? And then you start seeing other people, and you're like, well, could I try that? Could I do that? And I love Andrew's passion for curiosity. And I think if you listen back to the episode that I talk with Liz Clayton Fuller a little bit about that original sense of wonder, that joy, that wonder, right? I think that exists in Andrew as well, right? This sense of wonder, this sense of, oh man, like, am I going to try this? Sure, why not? He talks about building an A-frame on his property. And I love that with no knowledge really, other than this was his first time, so excited to be out there. And he talks about how his mentor, Richard, helped him through that. And I remembered in that conversation where we're talking about it, and I'm like, so you didn't really know? And he's like, no, and I did Richard? And he says, yeah, he must have. But with just blind, yeah, he must have. Okay, great, let's do it. Let's try it. What's the worst that's going to happen? And I love that attitude. We also talked about a little bit about how when one path closes, another one opens. So as Andrew realized that as he was getting older and skateboarding wasn't going to afford him the life perhaps that he wanted, and I don't think he ever had any pretensions that was going to happen, but he just knew that he couldn't continue to do because of, as you get older and your bones start to hurt and you take more injuries and it takes longer to recover. It's just the way of life and nature, right? So as he understood that, he started being able to find a new sense of meaning and purpose in life, and a new thing that drove him to share his curiosity, to push his curiosity forward, and that was woodworking. And I love that idea of like being able. I don't think we have to channel all of our love and passion, right? We always talk about do the thing you love, which I think is fine. That's great. There's nothing wrong with that. And I have always said not the opposite, but I try to switch those words around where it's like, love what you're doing. And it's like, if the thing you're doing right now, is it serving you? Is it bringing you happiness? Is it bringing you joy? That's amazing. Then keep doing it. If it's not, then it's okay to change. I don't know. We have this weird idea that the world should just be linear and it should just happen. I should start here and I should end over here. I don't know where we got that idea. I mean, I do know where we got that idea, but I think that's an old, antiquated idea, and I don't think we need that idea anymore. What else do we talk about in there? So in there, we also talk about educating yourself, looking inwards, understanding what it is that you're going to bring forward and what you're going to get out of this life, right? And what you're going to get out of these projects and what you're going to get out of your hobbies. And Andrew is getting a lot. He's bringing a lot. He's putting a lot in and he's taking a lot out from it. And I think you'll understand that as you completely understand and see his passion and you see his drive to create and make stuff. And if you go on any of his channels, if you go on any of his YouTube stuff, if you go on any of his Instagram stuff, you're going to see a man who is always willing to try stuff and is always willing to push forward, which I admire. He talks a lot about finding your crew, something that we've talked about a lot. I didn't even pay him to say this. I didn't pay him to say it at all, but he was talking about finding this crew of people that he wants to make more content with, and he's been making a lot of content. So, and I've talked a lot about it here already, but if you go and visit his Instagram or his YouTube, he's amassed a good audience. He's amassed a good audience, and he has a really great viewership on YouTube that have seen him make things. And in doing that, he's found this community where they have an Instagram group that he was talking about. And you can tell that that's going to push you forward, right? You can tell that other people being a part of your life and your hobbies are only ever going to push you. He talked about, this was an awesome opportunity for growth, right? Andrew had a friend who at one point was like, hey, what the hell are you doing here? Get your shit together, And maybe he didn't appreciate it right in that moment, but it took a little bit of time, but he appreciated it, right? We need those people in our lives to smack us around a little bit, to give us a little kick in the butt and say, hey, what the fuck are you doing with your life here? You have a skill, you have a talent, and if you like this, pursue it, And that's what I hope this podcast can be for you as well. I hope that you're listening in. I hope that anytime that you're struggling along, that you put one of these episodes on and that you let whether it be me or whether it be one of the guests that you just resonate with, right? Go find their stuff. Go find them, listen to them. One thing that we talked a little bit about in here as well was the idea of mentorship. And, you used to have this idea where you had to have a mentor in your life, like geographically close to you. We don't have that anymore. You don't need a geographically close mentor. You don't even have to talk to a person for them to be your in quotes mentor. You can follow people. You can be inspired by watching other content and by understanding a little bit, right? Now, that doesn't hurt. I certainly always advocate that you push, that you reach out, that you say, hey, I'm here, I'm doing this, because you never know who's going to respond to you. And you may say, oh, but I don't want to bother them, or, it's just me and I'm little and I haven't done anything. You know what? That person that you're admiring right now, that person also was little and they didn't reach out and they didn't know anything and they started with one subscriber, right? Everybody started with one subscriber. There's not a person in this world that has started with 10 million subscribers, like on day one. I guarantee it. We also talked about, actually, I love this. We talked a little bit about Andrew and his ability to have, so he had 100, we were talking about his 100 YouTube videos. And just to talk that was like an early day, right? He's done 100 YouTube videos. That's still early, and he was talking about that in what he's learned from that and what he's going to continue to do and how he's trying to drive consistency. And his hope and his goal this year was to put out 12 videos, skipping maybe January and maybe a month in the summer, but being able to complete a few little videos like that. And I think that's important to talk about. We also covered that this idea of pushing at the right time, finding that groove, and when you're in that groove, to push as hard as you can. and then release it, like it's this give and take. I think we have this idea, again, I go back to this idea of being linear and continually to push and push and push. I think it's a long marathon, right? Life is a marathon. We don't have to sprint right out of the gate. You don't have to be good at something right away. In fact, you're not going to be. You might be somewhat innately good, but you're never going to be great right out of the gate, We also covered in this one, and I love this little notion here. Andrew talks a lot, and I think it kind of goes back to this notion of living and working and building with intention, this make for yourself idea. And there are a million examples and a million quotes that I could pull out here, and you two you can go find them all. I'm not going to play a single quote here because literally every person has ever said this. Go make shit for yourself. Make shit that you're going to like, because at the end of the day, if you like it and you enjoy it, you're going to make it more, you're going to do it more, and people will come along for the ride. Anyway, with no more... with no more talk into the intro of this, I want to congratulate Andrew. I want to thank him so much for coming on and sharing his knowledge and his pursuit for creating and creation with us. I believe that if you listen to this entire conversation, you're going to walk away from this. If you go and look at some of his stuff, even if you don't listen to the conversation with me and him, even if you shut this video off, you shut this podcast off right now, and you just go check out his stuff, I beg of you, please go check out his YouTube channel, which is going to be linked down below. Follow his Instagram account. You will be inspired. You will be blown away by his talent. And please go check out his latest little pet project right now. And I just shouldn't even say it's a pet project. It's a big fucking project. the general store. He opened it up with Amber. If you're in the Ottawa area, you can definitely go check it out. If you're not in the Ottawa area, just follow along on the Instagram account and look at all the awesome friggin' creators and makers that are there. But without further ado, let's get right into that conversation. I thank you again, and I will see you at the end of this episode. Welcome to the Do More Cool Shit podcast, Andrew. It's been a long time since we've had a beer together. It's a little early for a beer now, but
yeah,
I think you were just starting to make paddles.
Yeah,
when we were drinking beer for the first time.
Sure. I was just learning probably at the Ottawa City Woodshop. Then.
Yeah. But it's been a long journey, and I was super excited to have you on when you said yes, because you have definitely built and done some cool shit along the way.
Mess around.
When you think about, it's like I was trying to figure out what I was going to like introduce you as. It was like skateboarder, builder, photographer, videographer.
Yeah,
this, that, the other thing.
Always mess around.
Doer.
Yeah,
doer.
Try to be.
Yeah. So how did you? So I know the journey kind of started with skateboarding.
Yeah,
like that's kind of like one of the main things, right?
Right.
So tell me when that happened and how that happened, and I think you've told the story a few times, but
no, I mean, I don't know, like, so I went to school in the States, so I was doing all my high school in California.
Yeah.
And yeah, the story was that, like, my mom, we moved out there for tech, and we moved from Ottawa originally.
Yeah.
Showed up. I didn't, I was just like a random Asian kid who played a little bit of baseball. I played a lot of baseball here, like when I growing up in Canada. And then it was just like, whoa, like you would drive by the skate park and the skate shop and you're just like, what is going on here? It's just like a horde of kids, it's like a bunch of bees, but it was like
right,
kids like ripping around on skateboards and stuff. And so, yeah, it was just like, what is that all about? And kind of just slowly got aboard, worked my way into actually being in that group, being able to like, infiltrate and just like, just, it was the cool shit, skateboarding is just, it's awesome.
What, were you scared at all? Because skateboarding or I guess as a kid, I don't know, you're less scared, right?
Yo, and that's like what I recommend to the kids now.
Yeah.
I'm just like, yo, freaking go for broke, because you will be broke. Like your body will be broken when you're older, So like when you're a kid, it's like, don't be scared. And, I was probably a little scared for sure. Like I didn't really have my folks weren't into it. Like, I didn't have any support kind of going into this kind of thing. Right. So yeah. different.
Yeah, and it's a different mindset. I think probably, I don't know, it was funny when I started thinking about it. I've listened to a couple of your interviews and read a bunch of things that you talked about, and it's like skateboarding started, and I was like, skateboarding started? How? But I think it's that adventurous part, that curiosity part, right?
Totally, and it's just like, do it or you don't. You know, like you can ollie. It's the hardest. It's the hardest shit ever. Like most kids switch to a scooter within a week.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, like it's just like it's because I can just lift up my thing. But you're like a skateboard. It's like, okay, you have to figure out the physics. You know? Like you have to put this foot down. You have to time your slide right, and then you have to like you have to catch it all, and then you have to go higher and higher and higher.
Yeah.
You know, then you have to flip it. Then you have to do like flip it with a 360 spin to it, and it's just like. Do it or you don't, you know? And you're measured by sort of how many tricks you do, the style that you have in doing it. Sure. And it's just like, that's kind of like, it's just such a metaphor for life, right? And
you get pretty good at failure, I would imagine.
Yeah.
or just, I'm like, I did it and I fell, but I'm all right.
Totally. You fail over and over and over again until you succeed. And like most video parts in skateboarding, is 99% failures are missed until you see that one make, and then the video part is of all the makes, right? Filmed over a course of a year.
Right. Yeah. It's like a 3-minute montage of like the successes, but it took you like 300 days to like nail that one thing.
Exactly.
Man, that's so like that's part of what Do More Cool Shit it's always been about, of like, what makes you special, or why don't, because most people I think quit at some point,
Totally.
And it's like, what makes any of the people that I'm talking with special? And it's like, well, maybe it's that I think we have such a big fear of failure, you know, and we stop doing stuff. And one of the things that stuck out to me, I listened to, you've done a number of interviews, and I had a chance to kind of scroll through some and listen to some and read some, and in almost every single one of them, people were like, "Oh, I wish you're living the dream. I wish I could do that."
Okay.
I mean, I've heard that a few times.
Yeah.
And I just find that so interesting that people, like, how many times do you think you've heard that? Like, you're living the dream, and like, I wish I could do that.
I have a not super great memory. I think it's kind of just like, I'm like, really? I said that? Or you said that? Really? Okay. I don't know. I'm just kind of always trying to be like, forward progress to a large degree, so I don't know. I'm like, okay, that's cool. It's like a fun little snapshot in that moment in time, and hopefully I wasn't offensive in any way.
No, you always answered it really well, and it was like, no, anyone can, like,
but
your answer has always been, and I thought was really good, of like, no, I just put the work in, like, I just kept going, and like you just said, like, I just kept moving forward, which I think is super key.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I don't know. Right now, I feel like I'm in like such a, not a regressed state, but like, it's always sort of like, I'm always trying to figure something out, and I'm always trying and hacking at different things. So I don't know, like, people might say that, but I'm like, really? Like, I'm kind of like really just at the tip of the iceberg on some new or different shit too, and I'm always just kind of working away. So it doesn't, folks might say that, but I'm always just like, okay, doesn't feel that way, but
yeah. I wonder. Yeah, that's an interesting thing. But like, that's an interesting idea too, of like people seeing it that way. But then I think you're just so busy moving forward and trying new things and thinking about the future. Probably. Do you do you feel like you take time ever to like be like, hey, that was really fucking cool. I just did that. Do you celebrate your successes?
So when the videos come out, frankly, right? So if, like, generally speaking, like, my workflow is like, I'll build a thing, or I'll come up with concept, try and really craft a story around why it is I'm making it and what it is I'm making, do that, and then when I put it out there, not a ton of people see it, but I'm like, I'm stoked. It's just like, so just really just like that, when you hit that publish button on that particular day, certainly I'll take like the weekend. I usually release on like a Thursday or Friday. And then I'll take like the weekend to just be like, okay, that was a lot of my life poured into something. Right. And then, kind of like wash, rinse, repeat after that. But certainly I take that time, like usually that day or that weekend. Yeah. And, I have a core group of homies who I chat with on the regular about like building stuff and YouTube stuff. And we'll usually just like, kind of rejoice in that and be able to just take a breather then.
Yeah, that's fair. I think when we first met, I know you were starting to build some paddles, but you maybe were doing some YouTube stuff, but I don't know that you had fully dove in. When did that start?
So, I mean, it's really kind of still in progress, frankly, you know. I think it's kind of, even within the last year, I've been like so super heavy on short form prior, you know, like the Instagrams, the TikToks and stuff. And it's just like, I don't know, that shit kind of just like pisses me off a little bit sometimes. like it's just, you don't get paid.
Right.
Brands are kind of a little more finicky with it. And frankly, it's easier. So that's always the draw. That's always why you're like, okay, short form.
Right.
Like, yeah, I'm seeing some, I see some good like sponsorship type money, and sure, I can go that route. But it's just like the one platform that's consistently paid me is like YouTube. And it's just like, you know, that's all just ads on your own stuff. And I don't know, I've just been like, I've been putting this off for far too long. I've been seeing a lot of creators who start with nothing, just like blow up, and you're like, what the hell? Like, you know, so within the last year, I'd say I'm like really shifted my focus to long form. You're just able to tell more of a story, and people can kind of connect more with you even too. These days.
It lets you into who Andrew Szeto is, and I think if you can connect to that, I think that's interesting. Who like, so you started, so we did skateboarding, and then I know you've had some other jobs. Is YouTube now kind of your main, or creating?
No. I mean, it's like one of my main focuses, frankly. Like, you know, because it's like, what's the shit that people are going to care about when you die, or what are you going to care about when you die?
Right.
That's the most important part, I think. And it's just like the stuff like that I put my hands on things and made some really cool things, and you know, I like didn't stop progressing. I like, you know, always wanted to learn,
right?
And you know, just kind of had that zest, you know. And I know that's one of my main focuses, and I don't know, it's just such a beautiful way to encapsulate a project and, you know, showcase it to folks more than just within the Ottawa area. And so that's kind of genesis for that.
What did you start? What was the first thing you ever built, do you think?
Well, with Matt Wallace, local woodworker who owns the Ottawa City Wood Shop, we built a little walnut bench together that in the cracks we filled with little skateboard butterflies. So,
okay. Oh, cool. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome. How did you decide that you just wanted to play with wood?
Well, actually, like back in the day when I was skateboarding, I actually bought sander and a bandsaw thinking that I would like get into it, like
making skateboards.
No. Mess with like broken skateboards and stuff.
Okay.
But the thing was that there weren't very many resources at the time, and it's just like, mostly a resource thing, I think. Like, you know, like there wasn't like the types of videos that are out there these days,
right?
Obviously, and I don't know what else was there. Yeah, it just didn't click initially.
Right.
You know,
right.
It was too much dust. I don't know. Like just just didn't take. So.
Yeah. Fair. And then what was the step from that? Because I eventually was at the Ottawa City Wood Shop. That kind of
totally 1,000% is the Ottawa City Wood Shop. So going into there, seeing the stuff that Matt was making, and just like really, you know, but it was also a point where it was like how my skateboarding was maybe progressing too, because I was getting injured a lot more, and I was just like, man, if I go out there, I'm gonna get hurt.
Right.
And so it's just like, you know, regressing to a point where it's just like, okay, like listen, I have to probably look at other options here.
Right.
And you know, it just like my time freed up from like not frankly like pushing myself as hard in this other front.
Right.
And so just channeling the energy in different ways.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I know in a previous conversation you've had, you talked about your parents and what their dreams were for you.
Oh yeah.
That's a little bit different.
It is, but I think like, you know, so how that's maybe progressed. So, you know, kind of traditional Asian family and stuff was that, you know, doctor, engineer, scientist, etc.
Right.
And, you know, I fulfilled that. I was an engineer. I've been an engineer in the Coast Guard for like 5-6 years, and then transitioned into like photography, videography for the Coast Guard. And now I'm doing the same thing, but for the sort of like the parent company, the Department of Fisheries and Oceans. And it's like, you know, I have checked that box of having a stable job, and I'm able to, you know, I think they've become fairly excited about the work that I do even
Yeah,
at work.
yeah.
Because they're just like, whoa, you're on a boat, you're like at sea, like for multiple days, working on a mission doing this, like, you know, some sort of search and rescue mission, or I'm on helicopters flying to, you know, like various lighthouses to document them or something along those lines. It's like, whoa, it's like, no, it's
not everybody gets to do that.
No, like very few people get to do that.
Yeah.
And so I think they've really seen that, like, you know, I have a good enough head on my shoulders that I'm able to get a job done.
Right.
I'm certainly able to see things through, and then also like folks, you know, trust the work that's coming out from me. So, you know, they keep sending me on various missions and we keep doing cool shit, you know? And so I think they're, you know, it's beyond say like an accountant or something along those, like, you know, an engineer, a classic traditional engineer. It's they just didn't know the possibilities, and, you know, it's just shifted.
I think that's actually what you just said right there. Like, they just didn't know the possibilities. I think that is such an interesting thing. I think now in our world where it's like, we don't even know what the job is going to be in a week, like, you know, in a month from now, like what the jobs could be. Yeah. You know, everything happens so fast. And the fact that you can even make money on anything other than like being a teacher, a doctor, a dentist, a lawyer, like, you know, like those were like the staples, you know. I remember there was a time in my life where I traveled across the country and I did these talks in high schools, and it was like I would bring a little board and it was always covered. And I would say to the class, you know, it might be a grade 10 class or a grade 11 class, whatever. And I would say, you know, what do you want to be when you grow up? You know, and they would list like doctor, dentist, lawyer, teacher, policeman, fireman, you know, and then I would like, you know, I'd write it on the chalkboard or whatever. And then I would like unleash my or unveil my list. And I'd be like, whoa, I read your mind. And it was like, well, yeah, because I was like, those are the only things. And then, you know,
normal.
Yeah, and I would throw down like, you know, here's all the university courses you could take, and it's like 5,000. It's like, you know, that have nothing to do with this. So I think that's always fascinating.
Yeah, but out of that 5,000, how many of them will lead to decent enough jobs?
Sure.
If they lead to a job.
Yeah, if they even lead to a job. Yeah,
it's a tricky one.
But the fact that you can even make up a job now, or like, I don't know, you can like put your skills to use. Like if you become an engineer, and then you find yourself now like working at like Coast Guard, like was that ever even a thought in your head as a kid? Like, I want to work for the Coast Guard?
No,
like,
and I wish it was kind of, because we have like, there's a Coast Guard college out in Sydney that I do kind of wish I went to, you know, like I was never a shipboard or a shipboard like engineer, never like a navigation officer or anything like that. And I'm just like, those are like, you know, when you think of the Coast Guard, that's like, you know, the boats, the big red boats in the sea, you know, like that are out there saving the people, creating services for Canadians. Like, I wish I did that. You know, and I wish like my parents maybe knew a little more about that to kind of funnel me into, mind you, I was also coming from the States. So it was like, you know, it really wasn't in my brain. It was like, literally, it was just skateboarding in my brain. And
did you think you were going to be a pro skateboarder at any point?
Never.
You weren't like, this is it, I'm going to go
my
pro.
goal was always just to get sponsored. And then that happened. And then, and then honestly, the other side of it is I wished somebody pushed me harder and told me more about various possibilities. But, you know, it was a very tight industry at the time. Things have opened up a lot these days. But, just... I knew I never was that good, frankly. so there's also that.
It's amazing though when you start. I don't know what happens to us when we're like teenagers, or why don't people tell us all these possibilities? I feel like there's so many possibilities, and maybe now it's just because times have changed. But I feel like there's so many jobs, and everybody I talk to, I'm like, oh, you can make money doing that. Oh, you can make money doing this. Oh, you can travel the world and make money. Oh, you can skate. But like, you know, I'm like, well, why does nobody tell us that along the way?
I mean, that's the big thing, is like searching mentors. And like really like looking at who your inspirations are, you know, mapping what they've done and just being like, okay, like following in those kind of steps. These days you don't even need to know the person. You just listen, we're also online that you can like literally follow those career paths in similar trajectories, you know? So like, you know,
I think that's a big one. Following a mentor, like getting a mentor, or like whether it's in person or like you said, now you can just like follow someone, and get to know them. But actually, maybe that brings us to, so you had a fairly good, well-known mentor yourself in the woodworking world, versus Scott.
Yeah, Rich.
So tell me about how that developed and how important that was to your growth as a maker.
And so when I say mentor and stuff, like he's definitely the huge one that I'm thinking of, So, he was just a dude at the Ottawa City wood shop, and he had projects on the go kind of always, but I think it was sort of an escape for him, right? Like I think so his story is interesting / a little, it's interesting. He's a great dude. He fell on some hard times in his life, so he was kind of living with a friend at the time, and he was on disability. And so I think it served as an escape for him, frankly, to get out of that house that he was living in, and to kind of be with these like-minded folks who were just like burgeoning and trying to craft something. Like, I had no clue how to join a piece of wood together, and he's just like, oh, I can help you on that. And then like before you know it, it's like, oh, there's a project in front of my eyes, and it's just like it's like that emoji of like the brain exploding, right? Like that's just like the feeling that you get. And I'm just like, dude, like I want that over and over again. And it's like this dude is just like, he was incredibly grateful with his time. Incredibly grateful with his knowledge to not only myself, but like literally everyone in that shop. He made everyone 1,000% better.
Cool.
So, yeah.
And I think I think that's so important. Like finding either that person or those people. I want to go back to maybe talk to me about, you were talking about a group of guys or a group of folks that you spend talking time like with YouTube and making and I think that's so important. How did you find that group, or what? Like, how often do you guys meet?
Right. So it's mostly like a little Instagram group. I got invited in. I'm by far the smallest creator on there because I suck. I have a long way to go, but it's good. I get really great feedback from folks. A lot of woodworkers, international. It's one dude, Jesper Makes. He's incredible. My buddy Daner, he's out in Australia. Morley Kurt, he's out of Toronto, but he's like just van life and everywhere now. He's incredibly successful, incredible dude. Benjamin Ueda, he's out.
Oh yeah, I know Ben.
He's out in California.
Very
and
cool.
Just like, it's really great the feedback that you can kind of get from folks, and they're just, man, they are so keen on what's happening in like the, with the packaging space, like thumbnails and titling and just like, they have really figured out their audiences. Whereas I've just been like, again, like, within the last year, I've really started to care, and it's just like, it's just such an opportunity missed, kind of, frankly. But I'm working on it.
Yeah, it takes a lot of effort, right? But I think it's so key, and that's something we preach all the time, especially on the podcast, and I think most people know, is like, find your people. And there are people out there, and they're all over the world.
Absolutely.
Like, they don't even have to be in your back door anymore. Like, they can be from Australia and California, and and you can chat and talk, and
it's literally, I have closer relationships with so many people internationally than I do like right here at home, right? And
just wherever it is that they're making stuff, and like doing the stuff that you want to do. I think that's so key.
No, the process is sometimes there's so few people who've done what you've done or are working on similar type of projects, right? That you're just like, you got to find them how you can. So
that's awesome. Well, that's awesome that you have that. So is it just a constant like chat? Do you guys share like videos and
absolutely,
and ask for critiques and
1,000%? That's the biggest thing. It's critiques of.
That's awesome.
And these days it's mostly on the packaging, frankly, right? So thumbnails and titles.
Like, what do you think of this thumbnail? Or what do you,
And mine always suck, but we're working on it. Someday maybe something will crack. But
how do you say yours always suck? Is it how many? Like, I know you've been on the YouTube path for a little while, but like, how many videos have you put out? Do you have an idea?
I mean, I could look at the studio. I'm pretty sure it's like maybe even close to like 100, but
yeah.
you know,
But that's still early. Like
it is.
Still
I think
young,
it is.
You know,
I think it really kind of is. You know,
think so
I'm just gonna
too.
take a look right now. I'm not trying to be an asshole.
no, that's fine. He's just doing a quick Instagram check-in here.
No, the YouTube, right?
No. Yeah.
It won't give me a number here, but let's say it's close to 100.
But it's close to 100. But that's
videos.
still like so young in the world of YouTube making. So you know, saying you suck is fine.
Oh yeah,
you know, he'll get better.
You know, I hope I always not hope like suck, but like, you know, like I think you gotta have always a bit of humility, and there's always room to grow. Certainly. So,
do you think there are? So if you have close to 100 out, do you ever make videos and then just not publish them?
No,
everything gets made and gets out.
Mostly, mostly. Unless it's client work. Some client work won't go out. Some work at work won't go out.
Right.
And frankly, like, I want to say it's not necessarily a fault of our own. It's frankly, I was just like, you know, we've alerted the clients that it's just like, listen, this is not going to fly.
Right.
It's just shit like that. Like, you know, but it's a learning process, right? Yeah. Everyone has to see how a product looks like from concept to finish before they know it's a complete dud, right? So it happens.
Do you have woodworking projects that don't make it into the world?
Or like I want to say yes and no, but like frankly, like these days we have a sauna, and that we're always burning wood, so it's just sort of like if it's no good, hey, it's got another purpose, you know.
That's really funny.
And if nothing else, I probably learned something.
That's right. Yeah, I think that's and that's one of the things that I always liked about me watching any of the stuff that you've been doing is like, it seems like you do it and it's out. You do it and it's out. You know, and it's like on to the next. Anytime we've ever talked, it's like, okay, well, you made the paddles. That was good. Check. I've done that.
Paddles are one of my mainstays. So
I might still do those, but it's like, okay, what's the next thing I can make? What's the next thing I make?
Totally.
You know, and it's like, that's what I've always admired of like that desire, the curiosity, maybe.
Yeah. Sure.
I find that really exciting and interesting, and I feel like somewhere along the line adults lose that curiosity.
Sure. Well, it's just depends, right? Like I think on lifestyle, frankly, right? If you have kids, you have a family you need to be supporting, frankly, you got to do what you got to do to cover the bills first and foremost, right? And you know, I've always kept relatively lean. I don't have any kids. Amber and I probably don't want to have kids necessarily.
Right. You're busy making
other things. And then we're starting a store together soon. We had a little
you did the pop-up.
We did the pop-up,
right?
but we're looking at signing a lease in Ottawa.
Amazing.
In the very near future there, and so that will be a bit of our baby.
So and the pop-up went well, I'm assuming.
Oh, pop-up went amazing.
So it's like, okay, that was a good test probably for what,
well, this is her dream. It's like having a store has always been her dream, and
awesome.
You know, how I can support that, you know, and making sure we're both firing on all cylinders is just like, you know, kind of really great for the both of us, you know, and for our psyche, for how we're living, and so just continuing to push in that regard, you know, and it's great.
Even that's interesting. Like, you know, we're talking about the people that you were on Instagram talking with, but like your own partner, you know, being able to like, find that person that you can connect with on many levels, probably.
Totally. Well, you know, there's always that concept and that saying of like, you know, you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most.
Right.
And, you know, ensuring that my partner is kicking
one
some
of those.
butt.
Yeah, one of those.
Like, you know, really, really strong has always been something for me too. And Amber's, I don't know, she's awesome.
So, that's cool. I think that's, I don't know. I wonder where we lose that idea of like, or when people are like, oh, I'm not the 5 people, or like, you know, I feel like you've got a really good community around you. Yeah. And I feel like people that are doing a lot of cool shit that they want to be doing and that they're happy with, they often have a lot of people around them. I wonder why more people don't do that, or how we get lost doing that.
Yeah, I mean, it's all tied to the same question you asked earlier, you know, like how and why do people lose their creativity, you know? And it's just like, you know, well, frankly, some of it's like, you know, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you know, if you're not able to meet your base, like, you know, heck, you're not gonna be able to create cool shit either, you know? So you know, you do the best that you can. Frankly, I've been in a fortunate and privileged enough place, like with work and to have my bases met so that I can continue to keep cranking different things.
Right.
But it's like, it's becoming harder and harder, frankly, sometimes too, like generations coming up. Like sometimes I'm just like, shit, yeah, like rent is crazy.
Yeah.
And then you're going to pay a membership at the wood shop. Like, and then you have to go buy wood to make stuff.
Right.
It's not a cheap
easy
game either. Right. And, yeah,
that's true. I like that idea of, was there any point in your life where you were like, just thinking about like paying your bills and that kind of stuff, where it's like, okay, but I need this outlet. So I'm just have you ever changed your lifestyle, I guess, to like allow yourself to be at the wood shop? Or skate or whatever that.
Well, skateboarding, certainly. It's just like, there were times, like certainly through university, I wasn't making a ton of money. I had a job. I had a job at Normal. I was like selling shoes and stuff.
Right.
And that was kind of fun. But then outside of that, I'd be skateboarding.
Right.
And no, like, in engineering school is not a walk in the park either. Right. So finding time to skateboard, there was a period of time where I didn't skateboard for a long time. And then my buddy, Dan Pulvermacher, like he was like, man, get your shit together. Like, like, what are you doing with your life? And I was like, I was like, frankly, really offended about it at first.
Right.
But like, you know what? Like, Dan and I are still really good homies. He lives in Saskatoon these days. He was in Japan for a super long time. Yeah. I thank him. I think I've thanked him for it many times in the past. Cause like, it's like, like what would I have become if I just like, quit skateboarding altogether and just like stuck to this like weird path of engineering only and being like a nerd, like, so, making that time, trying things is like, it's brought me the friends that I cherish the most. Yeah. And it's like really been my story, frankly. That's so
awesome to have people like that as well that aren't afraid to. I think those are always the best friends anyway. Yeah. Are the people that are like, hey,
aren't afraid to tell you
what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, what are you like? Come on, get your shit together. Yeah,
totally.
That's awesome. Yeah. All right. Well, we've been sitting here for a long time and we haven't talked about this this thing that's happening behind us. Yeah. So this is a piece that you made as well, right?
It is. But this is like, harping on like the new crop of kids like coming into Ottawa scene, like doing really cool things. So like Andrew Szeto is the designer. He's here in Ottawa. Like, he's got to be on here sometime,
Yeah.
But he designed this and then, kind of threw some skateboards on it just to, make my rendition as I do. And it's my second and third latest YouTube videos are an interview with Andrew and also just like this chair.
Cool.
And, it's just, and it's kind of like a fun little Ottawa story in itself.
Yeah. And when we were setting up, I think I asked you how many skateboards, and you just said too many.
Too many, but 22, which is too many for like a project for myself, frankly. It's actually more than the kayak that I built prior to that. Yeah.
Oh, shit. Why? How come? I feel like
frankly, this is a lot. Like the veneers on both sides, you're effectively building 2 tables.
Right.
It's 2 tables on each side times 4. So you're like building out the number of skateboards you need for 8 tables.
Right. Wow. That's a lot.
So it's a lot.
That's a lot. Yeah.
It adds up to be like, so, I really was just like scratching my head at the end of this thing because, it's the number of resources it took, but you know what?
So if you want it, it's for sale for $10,000.
No, it's and I can't sell it. It's it's one of those that it's Andrew's copyright and stuff.
Right,
so
right.
I just am grateful that we had a chance to collaborate because he's doing so many cool things. He's gonna be a big designer. I think. He's doing such really cool things, and he's always kind of trying things. So, just to have this piece, to have the video, the memories, our good pal Victor, going on Instagram, he's blowing up right now, making videos. Yeah. Incredible videographer. He helped with some of the video. Him and his partner Emma's also an incredible designer and stuff. They were in the video, reviewing the chair and stuff. And it's just, cool. I don't know, like it's just a fun memory to have with some, I think the next crop of really incredible folks to come from our town here.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love when you can see stuff like that and like just again like another group of people that are coming around, or like in your circle, Yeah, Yeah, that's funny. I feel like that's something too that maybe doesn't get talked about a lot, but like the more you do, the more you post, the more people see, the more people come out of the woodworks.
Yeah.
You know, and the more...
Well, you're trying.
Yeah.
You know, like
yeah.
you're giving a shit and you're trying, and people will get behind that, I think. You know?
Yeah.
Like, it's just like I would way rather help somebody who's like hacking away than somebody who's just gonna sit there and just like, oh, what was me, like, to a certain degree, you know? Like, yeah.
I think there's a lesson in there for sure, and like just post it. Like I work with a lot of creators and a lot of creatives, and it's like they're nervous to put out their first video or their first podcast or their first whatever, and I'm like, it's gonna suck. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like just put it out. Like you know, and it's like you will find people will come out and say like, oh, that was pretty good, but like, have you thought about doing this, or have you thought about doing that? And if you can allow yourself, I think, the brain space, or not take everything personally and be like, oh, it's about the work and it's about trying to make. I think I've told this story a few times, but like I have a designer friend of mine, a graphic designer, and she is one of my favorite people because I can sit there and say, hey, I was thinking about this logo and like I think it, you know, maybe it's got like it's gonna look like this and that and whatever, and she'll just take whatever scrap piece of paper, napkin, whatever, draw it. And I'll be like, yeah, okay, that's it. Like, that's kind of it, but maybe this way. And like, she doesn't take it personal. She's like, oh, okay, great. And she'll like, you know, like crumple that up and throw it away. And it's not like, she didn't take like, I don't know. She's like, okay, on to the next thing. Yeah. How can I make the next one? How can I make it better? How can I?
Absolutely.
Like, you know, and it's not like, she's not trying to take it personally. And I think that's a thing I find a lot with creatives. I know a person who like won't spray paint, like really wants to redo furniture. But won't do the first step because they might fuck it up.
You're dead in water.
You know, and I'm like,
well,
what do you mean you're gonna fuck it up? I was like, get a piece that's $10 that, like, you know, just practice. You know,
totally.
Of course you're gonna screw it up. You know, but it's okay.
I mean, you have to bomb. You know, like you just have to suck. Like, and that's why I have no problem with it.
Right. And and that's why I love the idea of the like take whatever, because like when I think about you and what you're doing and the brand that you've got now, and it's like I love when I would listen to some of the earlier stuff from even 2021 that you were talking about, like skateboarding being the start. Like I go back to the beginning of this conversation of like, oh yeah, you just failed a lot. Probably you failed, like you fell a lot, you know, and you got back and nothing bad happened, like, you know, or some bad things happened, but you stood back up. And
I mean, like one of the things on that vein is that like the one lesson sort of from skateboarding, and we were talking about it earlier, in that like, you know, I kind of wish somebody told me to keep pushing in this way, keep trying different things in this way. There really wasn't like a bigger mentor figure in skateboarding for me, I found. And so, you know, I kind of frankly stopped progressing. Like, you know, I told you like one of my early goals, I was never going to go pro probably, but I was like, oh, if I can get like sponsored, that'd be wicked. And frankly, like that happened. And I didn't really, I kind of rested on the laurels or whatever, right? Like I didn't really push beyond. And then now being older again with like more of like a broken body for trying shit anyhow.
Sure.
I tell all the kids, no, man, like this is your shot, this is your window, because you will be injured a lot more when the older you get. You know, your Achilles won't hold.
Happen,
your knees, you're gonna need multiple surgeries. Like all of us have seen it and been there and done that. You know, and just like, you know, now is your time. You have to push, you know? And so that's one thing. I kind of really, frankly, stopped and, you know, got dropped by a bunch of sponsors and just like, you know, and it didn't feel good. And I just like, I don't know, like I like, you know, having taken that, I like don't want to stop in the other, in my pursuits now. You know, you're like, there isn't an end point, you know, when you think there is, someone's gonna, you know, crop up and do exactly what you're doing, but better, you know, and that could have been you, or that should be you. And I don't know, it's one of those where that was a lesson from back then. And, you know, I'm always going to be hacking away some way, somehow, you know? And so,
I think that's, cause I mean, even in moving into the woodworking, you could have probably just made paddles forever, you know, like you did it and you made that really well. And you know, you probably could have just kept making those. You know, but then like it's kind of boring. It's sweet, don't get me wrong. Like I still make them,
and it's like it's still like a primary product that I make, a staple product that I make that makes me money still. But it's like I'm not a factory,
right?
You know,
right.
I look Chinese, but I'm not like a Chinese factory. You know, like I'm just like, you know, that doesn't keep my brain excited.
Right.
And certainly to keep them in check, keep making them and stuff, and keep selling them to folks and having folks having my products in their hands, amazing feeling. I want to keep that going, but I want to be progressing, right? So I know. Furniture,
try new things. Try something different.
This year,
build an A-frame cottage.
Exactly.
build a sauna.
And then this year is going to be, I don't know, I think with the store, I want to go heavy into furniture. I've always wanted to make more furniture, and like I want to have a couple staple furniture products if possible. I'm going to work really hard at trying to do that.
Right.
So that's the next goal.
I remember when, I don't know, this is probably a long time ago too, but we sat down and I just remember you talking about like wanting to buy land, because you were like, oh, I want to play. I don't know what I'm going to do on it yet, but it was like, I want to buy land. And so that all has happened, you know, so that was a long time ago, and that now has happened, you know, and built the A-frame. So anybody that hasn't checked it out, you definitely have to go check out the video that kind of blew up.
The only blip of success I've had on YouTube
video. But like it's out there, and it's really cool, and it's cool to see. I don't know, like you had never built anything like that before.
No,
right?
No. Well, that's like harping back, like Richard, like quarterbacked that.
Yeah.
You know,
had he built stuff like that before?
I guess he had.
or like,
yeah. I mean, he seemed confident enough. I kind of followed him blindly. We have a product.
I like that he was confident. You're like, okay, great. You're like, you're confident. Yeah, I'll be confident.
Totally. That's awesome. By modern day building, it's pretty good. There certainly are, you know, different things that I would have done when I approached it today, but you only know that from having done that, right? And so again, like, you know, having such an incredible mentor and having done that, it was huge, you know.
How long did the whole thing take?
It was like a little over a month. Yeah, like a couple months.
That's not even that crazy, really.
But I took the month off of work. Okay. And then I was on it full time.
That's
like
amazing.
Full, like we were like 6 a.m. till like 6 p.m, you know, like unable to move kind of style. And this is like only a 10 by 10 structure.
Right.
So it's not huge by any means. So
and it's a cabin. You're not living there, are you?
No,
it's a cabin where you go.
Sweet little weekender getaway cabin. Nice. Yeah.
And then this year past, you built a sauna, right?
Sauna, yeah.
And what was that process like, or what gave you the?
It was sweet. I kind of more or less followed the steps that we did. It's just like I was on my own, and it was a different shape. Structure.
Yeah.
So I got a little bit
from
of help.
triangle to circle.
Well, it's what's the circle actually. So the sauna, it's kind of more like a Volcom stone.
Okay.
So I meant it. It's based off of this company called the Rustic Way.
Okay.
And they kind of have these like Dr. Seuss styled curved roof homes, and so that's what I tried to mimic. We were still kind of pandemic pricing for wood.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah.
And so frankly, I kind of went cheap on it a little bit. I still went by like 2x4 studs, for my rafters. And then I had these plywood add-ons that gave it a curvature. Had I done it like maybe now, I probably would have just done a huge like arch with plywood as all my studs for my rafters instead.
Right.
But yeah, shit was still
$1 million for Yeah. I remember we were starting to build some stuff around the studio and stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, this like sheet of plywood now is $400. Exactly. Like, you know, I was like, that's crazy.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I never even thought about that in terms of like how that would have affected you and what you were doing. And then like, do you ever find there's pressure as someone who now is like doing YouTube stuff? Do you ever find it pressure to be like, oh, I need to make something so I can film it because I don't have a video coming out?
Like yes and no. Like realistically, I want to get back on some semblance of consistency. Yeah. Not even back. Like I want to have some semblance of consistency for the first time, maybe ever. So I'm like a goal is like 12 videos. Right. And I've kind of like, you know, I've been I think now more than ever, it's like you really have to think about these almost a year in advance, months in advance, because your story just isn't going to necessarily be that great if you're just like doing it on the fly, you know? So I have like a list that I'm constantly looking at and always kind of adjusting, creating the titles for, because like you should almost have a rock solid title before you even go into shooting your first frame, frankly, you know? So I've been working really hard at that. This new store venture is going to be a part of that stuff as well.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
You know, some interior design type stuff. Again, the furniture side of things. You know, how does my pricing look? Am I even going to make a penny? These types of things where, you know, folks go into woodworking like thinking like they might make some money. And so I'm going to document that process. Right. And yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's cool. I like that. I hope everybody heard that. If you're creators out there, and I know there are a lot of creators that listen to this and watch this, and it's like, make a title. Think of the title before
and the thumbnail,
you know, and the whole idea like well in advance. I know far too many creators that just, you know, do the thing without fully planning it out or fully thinking about it. And I think and being consistent. I think those two things are huge.
I know. And so
I work with enough creators that it's like, it's got to be consistent. It's got to be planned.
Totally.
So you said 12 videos.
I'd love to.
You're thinking one a month kind of deal? Yeah,
one a month. I'd love to. Probably take off January. Yeah. Because I hear it's pretty slow usually for views and stuff. And then, backload like the end of the year. Like, I mean, I was the last few months I've been pretty consistent, which I'm like pretty stoked on, you know, like I think October was the kayak build video. Yeah. November was this chair. Two videos surrounding this chair, and then December was finally like the full time lapse of the sauna build. So I don't know, I'm stoked. I'm probably gonna take off January. We're gonna go into building out the store and documenting some of that. I've also got a couple builds that I've been documenting that we'll start dropping end of Feb, right, March, cool, and into the new year there.
When does the store open? Do we know? Or when do you hope the store will
Aiming
open?
for an April. Hopefully not an April Fool's, but you know, like shortly thereafter kind of a deal.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. That'll be a big undertaking for sure.
That'll be something different.
A whole new adventure, you know. It's like, and I'd be remiss if we didn't at least talk a little bit about Maru.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The OG brand.
Yeah, the OG brand.
I mean, it's still my email.
Yeah, it's still
we've been emailing. Like, you get my emails from that email account. I mean, it's still what I'm registered as and what I do all my projects under.
Right.
Still. So, yeah, I mean, that was like my first sort of venture into entrepreneurship, which is clothing brand.
Right.
And, I mean, I'm still like stoked on it. I still have a lot of all of my pieces. And
was it clothing first or the camera straps? Or did the camera straps come?
Bit of both. I mean, they're like an accessories clothing brand. Yeah. Like it's all in that, right? So it's kind of around a clothing brand around artists,
right?
That I was stoked on. It was kind of like, you know, kind of edging on the skateboard world, but like kind of that side of things. And I think it was sweet. I loved what I was kind of doing. The only thing was just the overheads,
right,
which is crazy. You know, you go into a season and it's easily $10,000-$20,000,
right?
And you're like,
and
okay,
do that again.
You go that into debt, and then you're like, okay, let's wash, rinse, repeat, and like let's hope the sales hit, you know. And I don't know, I wanted to put out more of a premium product, so most things were made in Canada, right? Pretty basically everything was made in Canada,
right?
And it's just like, it's just such a higher price point for such a low volume, and
I think it's a really tricky thing to like. I don't know, for people to even understand that fully, right? Like, or to find the right balance between, you know, I want to make something really premium, and I hope people will appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, you know, and the risk you're taking / you know, the challenge that I found that I wasn't really affecting myself, the products. You know, like, and so that's where, you know, once I started woodworking, I was like, yo, this is the pivot.
I'm touching this.
Everything is 1,000% me.
Right.
You know, this lives and dies by how I perform.
Right.
Only.
Right.
So I don't know, I loved that aspect. And, you know, it was really more of a product that I could be like, hell yeah, this is like,
you know? I fully did this thing.
Yeah.
From start to finish. Yeah. Maybe I just want to end a little bit. We'll talk a little bit about just the future of Andrew Szeto.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
Do you have an idea? So store coming up, products are there.
Yeah.
YouTube is starting to, maybe he's going to be more consistent this year.
So being more intentional, just in general. Like, you know, I think being more intentional with what I'm doing, trying to really focus on things. So YouTube, I think, is one of the big platforms that I've just like, you know, that I've neglected, and I'm putting all my eggs into that basket and hoping things happen. But, you know, even if they don't, like, I love the storytelling that I can have there. And even like, you know, like I've talked about it on, maybe you've heard it on previous podcasts or whatever, but it's just like, I put this stuff out there because it's like, you know, it's hopefully stuff that I'll be like on my deathbed and be like, oh, that was pretty sweet. You know, I'm making it more or less for myself.
Right.
And if folks are into it, that's kind of awesome. But, you know, also at the same time, I'm like, you know, it's pretty cool that I just get this out there.
Right.
So that's one thing. The store, certainly, my relationships, in a world where it's a lot of this, like I'd want to have, you know, focus on, you know, also having like very real relationships and ensuring that we keep, you know, strong local relationships as well.
Right.
So, you know, Amber, my relationship with Amber, like, you know, we've tried to put the phone away as much as we can and, you know, have date nights, proper date nights. We're doing like dance classes and stuff.
Nice.
So just like that kind of a thing. And then I don't know, one random thing that's like a bit of a mulligan is like, I've been taking comedy classes.
Oh, nice. That's amazing.
Like improv. And then I plan on doing some stand up because,
and
just pushing my limits there, really getting another set of juices going, because it's just like, how many times are people going to want to just come see a build being done? Like, it's cool, but like, what if we can inject as much humor as possible? So I don't know, I want to be laughing. I want to be rolling on the floor laughing anytime I watch anything. Like, why not try and inject a little bit there too? So yeah, a lot more bombing. Probably.
One more chance to bomb a bunch.
A lot more sucking. Well, it's gonna be never ending amount of sucking, but like,
I feel like that's a good, like, was that the memoir, like a lifetime of bombing?
A never ending amount of sucking. But it's also like with the guys that it's just like,
that's really funny.
I'm intentionally doing it and that I want to challenge myself, right? Like I want to still continue to grow in other ways.
Right.
Whatever there's presentation, and then also in the builds, frankly. So furniture, like I said, furniture is going to be a big one. Just really having pieces that, you know, people that'll maybe hopefully last generations that, you know, are just, you know, that mid-century modern touch with skateboard. So that colorful touch, that's just like, wow, you know, that's awesome. In a nutshell.
Very well, I think that I love the desire to like push yourself like that. That's awesome. I love that you shared that you're doing comedy classes, improv classes. I think that's
why not? It's goofy.
Why not?
It's goofy, but it's just like we went to a comedy night last night with my pal Chris performing, and it's just like, oh man, I get anxiety of even thinking about the idea of going up there. So I don't know, like pushing yourself to even just try it, like. Heck, you're gonna be better for it, I think.
And what's the worst that is gonna happen? Like, people might not laugh. You know, that's all that's gonna happen. You know? And like, what if you try woodworking and the piece doesn't come together? The piece doesn't come together. Like, no one does. You know, like, you know, what if you try to do a skateboard jump and you fall? Maybe you break your ankle or something. But that's probably extreme. You know,
right.
But it's
but like, you know, you have the idea of having tried it in your brain. And oftentimes I find this in a roundabout way of various other projects or various other experience, you suddenly amass enough skills to be able to do it. And then you can come back and make that shit happen. I've had that happen a couple times.
That's cool.
And this is like, you know, the feeling of then being able to accomplish it. It's like, wow, you know?
Right. So, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna ask you one last question. As a creative, what's one thing that you think would help move you forward in any way?
Well, what we talked about a lot today were mentors. So certainly seeking those folks out, seeking folks who have done what you're thinking of trying to do, sparking relationships with them if possible, or, you know, just really, you know, analyzing them and, you know, never stealing, but like if you can kind of mimic to a certain degree, imitate lightly and kind of develop those skills and then kind of forging your own path. I think it's kind of huge, you know?
What about you personally?
What?
What's one thing that could push you forward? Do you need a new
comedy,
mentor?
baby?
Comedy.
We talked about it. No, I mean it's kind of being intentional, frankly. I think that like even talking about moving away from short form into a lot more long form is that the short form platforms that you're always kind of like, oh, I can just make this quick thing for Instagram. I can make this quick thing for TikTok, and I want to get away from that and like really be like intentional about like, I want to build this beautiful credenza.
Right.
It's not going to be a short form thing.
Right. It's going to be a longer thing.
It's going to be a bit of a process, at least initially.
Cool.
And so just putting in the time, doing the work, creating bigger things, injecting some comedy into things.
Yeah. That's awesome. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on and doing the Do More Cool Shit podcast with me. Where can people find all of the things that you're doing?
Right. So my YouTube's like my full name, Andrew Szeto. Instagram's just my last name twice. Szeto. So SZETO. And that's mostly it. So always happy to chat and help folks how I can. And
awesome.
Yeah.
One time up. I love it. Well, thanks so much for coming on. It's honestly, I really appreciated it. I've loved seeing your journey. It's been a long journey, I think, of learning and failing and growing and pushing. And
it's only going to be longer, hopefully.
And it's just going to keep going. Yeah. So we'll revisit probably in a few years.
And thanks for doing this. You know, it's like, it's cool that it's always amazing when folks in our town are trying to do stuff like this, because it's just like, heck, we need it.
Yeah.
Everyone knows we need it.
Well, we just need more people making, I think. And just so we can grow that whole circle a little bit more.
Trying things.
Yep.
Doing more cool shit.
Doing more cool shit. There you go. All right. Well, thanks so much.
Cool.
Holy crap. What a friggin' episode. Am I right? You creative nerds, I hope you listened all the way through. If you were hearing my voice right now, you probably have listened all the way through. So amazing. Kudos. I hope that you took every ounce of knowledge, passion, excitement. I hope that you also go check out everything that Andrew has to offer. And please, if you are a maker, a builder, a doer, a creator, connect with Do More Cool Shit. And if you don't want to connect with Do More Cool Shit, always connect with any one of these guests and let them know that this is where you heard them, where you saw them for the first time. Honestly, everyone that's on here is making and doing really, really cool shit. I am trying to bring those people to you. I couldn't be more excited to do it. Please go watch Andrew's stuff. Please go visit it. You'll see all the links to everything that we talked about down in the description below. And I just can't thank you guys enough. It's really awesome being able to do this podcast, being able to have these conversations, and to know that you guys are out there doing more cool shit. And every time I hear what you guys are working on and what you guys are doing, it just brings me so much joy, because the world needs more of this cool stuff going on. The world needs more people coming alive, right? And so I couldn't be more excited. And I have one last really huge shout out and a big thank you to Doug Wallace. So on this episode, you heard for the very first time our intro song and our outro song right now. And this entire song was put together by Doug Wallace, an amazing local musician. And I cannot say enough good things about him. He did this, and I think he's really, really captured the essence, the energy of everything that we're doing here. So kudos and thank you once again. And on that note, let's hear that outro song, and I will see you guys back here on May the 13th with episode 49.